This video presentation is made possible by Brewster Services Group.
It's pretty close, not a little over 4:30, so we'll open up this Loudon Utility Board workshop for September 2020. Before I go any further, I'll read this notice of electronic meeting access and information. To ensure government operations continue to function openly and transparently during the COVID-19 emergency, while taking measures to protect the health and safety of citizens and government officials, Governor Bill Lee issued Executive Order Number 16 on March 20, 2020, allowing governing bodies to conduct essential business by electronic means. A link to the electronic meeting access and information is available online at www.loudonutilities.org. I'd like to welcome everybody here today. This is unusual. We have reasons to be here. We're going to, when a meeting's over with, and we're going to do a little touring. We got some things we're going to do up here, or some things we want to do, and we're going to be looking that over. So thank you all for being here, and if we have any visitors with us that would like to address the board, now would be okay. It'd be a time to do it.
I'm Mitch Miller, but I think I'm on the agenda.
You are pretty much right now, Mitch. Yeah, thank you.
I will open up. I appreciate your time for being here. Is this okay? And can everybody hear me? All right. So my name is Mitch Miller, and I'm from Loudon, Tennessee. My family's all here. I was born here at the old Loudon Hospital. I went to school at Loudon Elementary, Fort Loudon Middle, and Loudon High School. My mother lives here on Mason Lane. I became interested in computers when I was in the 6th grade after reading a book in the middle school library on basic programming. I became enamored with computers and began a quest for knowledge that would end up spanning a lifetime. 2 years after that, while in 8th grade, my math teacher, Miss Harrison, one of the best teachers I ever had, took a continuing education at Wrong State class. It was taught there at the middle school on the computer, in the computer lab there. And I was interested in what she was learning. It was about computer programming. And she quickly discovered that I knew quite a bit about the subject because I had been obsessing about computers for a couple of years at that point. And she discovered that I could tutor her in her computer programming class while she was helping me with math. So that resulted in an invitation to the college class where I helped the professor teaching the other students, all adults probably, with their computer assignments and learning basic programming. What I learned from that experience was that if you want to be the teacher's pet, all you got to do is help them with their homework. So the reputation of a computer whiz followed me into high school, where I assisted with tech support in various capacities. So if the state attendance program was broken, I got called to the office. Those skills started turning into a business. While I was in high school, I'd build computers out of parts for others. In fact, in 1986 or 1987, the very two first computers at Mayor Harris's church, I personally hand-built. That was back when 8286 processors were all the rage. And I even networked them together. And that very well may be the very first example of Ethernet networking installed in the city of Loudon. That was in '86. Sometime around 1988, electrical engineer named Mr. Bill Watkins called the school and asked if anybody was interested in computers and had interest in an internship. Well, the school staff immediately recommended me and sent me to talk to Bill. And at that time, I went down and talked to him, accepted his offers, and the last 2 years of high school, I was a part-time employee here at LUB. I look back at this now as a great opportunity to learn from Bill. I learned about SCADA, about equipment remote control, about power billing, using demand meters, with telephone lines connected for electronic meter reading, about CAD drawings and AutoCAD, surveying and building electrical distribution. All of these are subjects I learned here at LUB. When I graduated in 1990, alongside characters such as County Mayor Buddy Bradshaw and school board member Scotty Newman, and my friend Mr. Jeff Trout, who works for the city of Loudon, I left Loudon for opportunity and attended UT Knoxville. And within a couple of months, I found myself a remote supervisor in charge of student labs, and I worked with the UT Computing Center, and finally UT Distance Education. In 1991, I installed my very first broadband internet connection in the form of a digital ISDN line that was 128K, when the norm was a 9600 baud modem. Okay? Been a number of years ago. Okay? In 1992, the National Center of Computing Applications, NCSA for short, started developing the world's first graphical browser interface called Mosaic. And I helped beta test it. That was in 1992. In 95, I handled IP video conference or UT Distance Education. First examples of distance education using video conferencing. And I helped a private company in Knoxville that sold fine cigars online. Really one of the very first sites of its kind, an e-commerce website in 1995. Okay? I learned Cisco networking, and that took me to Cisco wide area networking. It took me to the banking industry in North Carolina for a while. And in 1997, I joined a healthcare company in Atlanta that revolutionized remote cardiac monitoring. Basically, Holter monitors that you can hold up to a phone to do EKGs over the phone. A custom device. In 1998, at the age of 27, I installed the very first web servers for WebMD.com. And it was a data center in downtown San Jose. And then spent the next several years riding out the roller coaster of the internet heydays that produced the internet that we know today. I've installed equipment in data centers in Amsterdam, Atlanta, Chicago, Hong Kong, London, Silicon Valley, New York, Miami, and Vienna, Virginia. Vienna, Virginia happens to be pretty much the birthplace of the modern internet. A closet in an underground parking garage was the site of something called May East Internet Exchange, which is the very beginnings of the internet. And I've stood in the room. I visited India. I ran a development team of 300 programmers in Hyderabad. Technology has given me the opportunity to travel the world. And in 2004, I started a private practice doing consulting for IT, and I continue that today. My clients include companies large and small. Today I handle support and networking security, internet security for companies, wealthy individuals, and communities. I started at the beginning of this saying, I am from Loudon. You never forget where you're from. I have not. I'm from Loudon. Now, after that long introduction, I want to get to the meat of the matter. I join you today here to talk about fiber optics. I'm aware that you discussed fiber optics and broadband in prior meetings and have an approved study that relates to providing internet to subscribers. I'm here to make 2 points clear. One, I think you're asking the wrong question. Number two, it should not be considered an all or nothing venture. During your past meeting, I watched the video, which funds for the study were approved. Statements that were made about the study would analyze the whole subscriber area and determine whether or not it's profitable to enter a consumer internet business in direct competition with incumbent telephone companies. Well, I can tell you with a high degree of certainty that, with no cost at all to you guys, that it would not be profitable if you take that approach, and that the return on investment would be way too long. Given the entire subscriber area to consider, and I can immediately see the density of subscribers is low, the competition will make such subscribers hard to come by, and the cost for deployment high enough to make the payback lengthy. It's really madness to consider it in that way. Does that mean you should walk away or put it to bed? Absolutely not. You're simply asking the wrong question. I'm not calling into the validity of any study. I'm sure your consultant will do a fine job. I'm only suggesting that the question for the study to answer, as it was proposed, may be the wrong thing to ask. Maybe a better question would be, where can I make money in fiber? Or how can fiber benefit our community? It's worth noting that studies and statistics in general, the person that writes the question to consider can usually get a result that's desired by carefully choosing the question. Right? So consider this. Let's say you have everybody in the whole county fiber to their house. Where are you going to plug it up? There's no regional connectivity here in Loudon other than the incumbent telephone companies. The first problem to fix is this regional connectivity issue. Municipal utilities are ideally positioned to fill these gaps in regional wholesale connectivity. The distribution assets in the form of power poles, rights of way, make installing fiber a simple decision of investment in the fiber without all the other legal fuss that goes along with it. And already owning these assets is a huge advantage over anyone else doing it. Medium distance fiber is nearly impossible to get in this area. AT&T will not sell you dark fiber. Okay? That's not their business. That's not how they make money. Companies and business and even other telecom customers can be your customers. Think Verizon, T-Mobile, US Cellular. Do you think they only want their competitors' fiber network to be their only connection to their cell sites? Probably not. Consider incoming 5G technologies, one cell site becomes many because the distance served is greatly reduced. Major trunk lines through the LUV distribution area can enable other telecom companies and even neighboring utilities to interconnect. By working with neighboring utilities and businesses to the south, Sweetwater and Athens could maybe connect up through to Knoxville data centers and telco providers using facilities routing LUV fiber. Connections in your business parks and industrial areas could bring options to help attract businesses to the area. Where in Loudon you only have one or two options as a business, I know of at least 7 carriers in Knoxville that are willing to give you a connection. If you have a connection up there, you can have any of the 7 providers. Business development at times greatly depends on the connectivity available. And the better the area is connected, the more types of businesses you can attract. Even companies in large cities may choose between 2 Class A office locations based solely on the connectivity available in each building. Just 20 miles away in ORNL that sits the world's 2nd fastest computer. It only lost that title a couple of months ago, and that was to a system in Japan that's 4 times faster. Why not add technology companies to our list of industries? Boats, corn syrup, tile, toilet paper, and technology. What's wrong with that? Just as in the past where land and transportation has attracted manufacturing industry to the area, to fully connect regionally with fiber can attract other types of businesses, including technology, banking, insurance, education. Can you get a quick return on investment and make money off a few regional fiber trunks? Yes, absolutely. Wholesale connectivity in the form of dark fiber and commercial internet. That's the answer. After the regional connectivity is in place, and I have a drink, I swear I'm almost done. After regional connectivity is in place, we can address our friends, neighbors, cousins that live within the LUV subscriber area with poor, little, or no internet connectivity. You would call this consumer internet. Do not build where the internet is good and the competition is high. Not at first. You can get to that, but don't do that first. Build where the internet is poor or non-existent, and you'll immediately have subscribers. And ask, does it all have to be fiber? A blend of fiber and last mile wireless technology may turn an area that would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to build fiber into a few thousand, offering speeds that would exceed what we have here in town already. One fiber trunk out to a remote area may allow coverage to hundreds of homes within a 3 or 4 mile radius. These places, like down in Philadelphia, you can stand on the front porch and see the line that provides internet to your neighbor. But you can't get internet because the telco companies don't service your house. Those places exist in this county and in this distribution area. Grow with it. Right? Grow with it. Someone said to me that this is a fiber discussion is a $15 or $20 million decision. And I flatly reject that idea. It only becomes that if you consider it an all or nothing approach. To get started in the fiber business, as I have suggested, maybe more in the hundreds of thousands for a few fiber trunks along major routes. To make carefully planned out decisions about those routes, service, and area limits to invest, to smart choices would lead to positive outcomes. Also keep in mind that every installed fiber becomes an asset. These are highly desirable assets, with buyers standing ready to buy. In fact, you can build in your own easy exit. Atlanta Gas Light Fiber is now Zayo Communications. Florida Power and Light FiberNet is now Crown Castle. You're not committed long term. You can get out. Choose wisely. If you were to ask if I think LUB should be in the fiber business, the answer is yes, absolutely. I think you're running about 10 years behind. It may not just happen the way that you thought of it before. Back to my 2 points. Ask the right questions. And is it all or nothing? Just not the right way to think about a fiber opportunity. You don't jump off a bridge to learn if you can learn how to swim in a pool first. We learn to crawl, then we learn to walk, then we learn to ride a bike, then we learn to drive, and then we go racing. There are steps. Fiber is no different. Start, and you can grow. The risk here is ignorance and poor choices. Ignorance and poor choices can easily be remedied through education and learning. Fiber is a known technology, and it's quite simple once you understand it. Now, everything I've said up to this point was true pre-COVID-19 and remains so. Now, let me explain how COVID-19 is related to your decision about fiber connectivity. The whole world is wholly changed, and some of these changes are not going back. Businesses that were in the past against work from home were forced into it. Traditional workers knew their jobs in the office well, were forced to go to home and figure out how to do their jobs in a new way. Companies and workers alike had to adapt and learn new ways to function, and a lot of this change is focused on technology. It's true even here. It's doubtful this meeting would be on Zoom right now without a push from COVID. In fact, have any of the board members heard of Zoom prior to February? Right? Okay. So a lot of these companies have learned a few things about their employees and their businesses over the last few months. They've learned that employees can be effective remotely. Most employees without a lengthy work commute are happier and just as productive as they are in the office. Considering the savings to these companies in office space and other expenses, there's going to be a pretty good percentage of these workers that stay at home permanently. Office space, office space is going to be downsized, and these predominantly metropolitan jobs are moving to rural areas that have good connectivity. These high income earners are selling the tiny condos in the city and buying big houses in the country. It's happening all over the country. As long as they can get a good internet, they can work. More apartments are available in New York City for rent at this moment than there has been in the last 3 decades. It's happening in every major city in the country. COVID has changed the way we teach our children. Schools were forced to explore virtual learning, train teachers to work in non-traditional ways. Even kids in the physical schools have more virtual content to assist in learning. And in preparation for regular flu seasons, the kids can now continue learning from home if the school closes for a few days. Business meetings happen over Zoom. Contracts are digitally signed. Cable TV is dying a slow death by way of internet streaming services like Netflix and Hulu. I can control my AC and phones, lights at my house from my cell phone. Technology is a solid part of our life. And COVID has definitely accelerated these transitions in many ways. Even limited backbone fiber connectivity into this community would bring advantages and prosperity that aren't currently understood here in this room today. It could capture new residents, new revenues, open doors for our younger generations that are currently unavailable. Imagine being able to get a high-paying city job, yet being able to stay in your hometown. Fiber could make development on the riverfront more attractive. It could bring companies into the area with jobs that are not simply workers on an assembly line. I do not think that internet access is only Facebook, YouTube, and Snapchat, but rather a path to opportunities the world has to offer. This board and LUB will always differ from telecoms because you believe in this community. Loudon and the surrounding areas, you may choose to build fiber networks to connect the world to us. Telecom companies will only build when they see money and revenue to go after. You could build to bring money and opportunity into this community. And telecoms will only build to take money out of the community. Like I said in the beginning, I'm from Loudon. Maybe if I get this community well connected, I will once again live in Loudon. It's the last page, I promise. I will close by saying thank you for the opportunity of an internship in high school 30 years ago. And I hope you consider me traveling here and sharing the knowledge I've learned in the long IT career to really. I hope you consider me traveling here today and sharing the knowledge I've learned from a long IT career that really started within this organization as an attempt to repay this community for the knowledge once imparted on me. I appreciate your time. Happy to take any questions.
You guys got any questions?
No question, but I like your 2 points.
I'm always available. We can talk about this another time. We don't have to take up the meeting. I requested this audience to get this said. And if you want to learn about fiber, I'll bring in a fiber splicing machine, and I'll train all y'all how to do it. And I'm not joking. I own it. Okay?
We certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Is there any other visitors that wants the attention of the board right now?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just recognize Parker Wright from the News Herald, and with us today also from Telco Village is CEO Winston Blazer, he's on the 4th row, and COO Mitzi Lane, here in the front row, and beside her is Bruce Johnson. He is a board member.
Welcome. You guys, welcome. All right, that takes us right into TVPOA contract.
Yes, sir. Well, we've had a very long conversation with Telco Village, and it started the better part of 2 years ago with Mr. Johnson and myself. And Mr. Johnson is an excellent representative of his constituency. I can remember at our first meeting at the little Mexican restaurant on Mulberry that he opened up our relationship with the acknowledgement that neither side is perfectly happy with their current position. And that started a long conversation. That conversation is still going and comes before you today. And you've been involved in it as well. Chairman Campbell has been involved in every major step of the way. And included in your packet is the current draft of the proposed agreement was distributed to you last week. But what I'll do is I'll just very briefly get some highlights, very briefly. We start off the agreement with an acknowledgement. It was very important to Telco Village and everyone involved in the talks that someone be able to pick up this document and read it 10 years from now, understand what the situation was. So we introduced the parties as one party is a producer, that is LUB, and another party is a distributor. That's Telco Village. There's confusion about that in the community, and we clear that up right from the get-go. So the producer is supplying 3.2 million gallons of water a day. The 3.2. That's per day. Per day. Yes, sir. There is a list of improvements attached to the document that need to be undertaken in order for LUB to produce that much water and get it to Telco Village. All right. The price of this water is stepped up over time in equal contribution to the contribution of city residential customers. This exits the old agreement, and the new agreement brings in an additional 1.3 million before the old agreement would have expired. That's something that has to be acknowledged and understood presently, is that there is an old agreement in place, and it is in place through 2024. All right, so this is a departure from that. And the new agreement enables us to change the rate charged for the water at least every 5 years, if need be, and it runs through the year 2040. Those are the major highlights of this agreement.
I trust that everybody has read this agreement, and we're certainly open for any discussion that anybody might like to bring up at this time. If you have any questions or any comments. Or what do you think about it?
Step in the right direction.
Excuse me?
It's a step in the right direction.
I agree.
Bullet point 3, Ty, where is that located in the contract at? What category does that fall under?
Exhibit A improvements, that's the last page of the document.
This one, this has the document, it's, I mean,
It's
the
a table,
improvement.
yes, it's a table or list of projects to be completed in a certain period of time.
So 1 million gallon water tank, the upgrade to one more
This-
pump station.
That's what you're reading, yes, I've got that, I guess I was reading a little more into it.
Yours look like this.
Yeah, well, I just printed a different type of
Oh, you
copy,
did.
it is the same, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just, when I read the bullet point, I just saw it as a little deeper detail, pertaining to deeper detail on the, contract from who pays for all of that, so that's falling in the cost, I guess, what we were talking about on the rate of the water per gallon.
Yes, the cost of those projects
Yeah.
is
Based on the
built
cost
into
of
the
service
rate
study.
adjustments, yes.
Okay.
And we will build that water tank, or is it just doing a reconstruction on one valve current?
You know, we're building a new tank next to the existing tank out there.
Okay. And we already have the ground for that enough there to do that, right? We don't have to purchase any more ground.
It is likely that we will acquire new land.
But is that cost built into this number here?
A projected cost is, yes.
We won't know exactly how much land we need at this time until the engineering is complete.
So with that projection, I guess that'd lead me to bullet point 5 or 6. On the 5-year, we had spoke about this maybe a month ago, of looking at 3 years, but for some reason that 3 years was too short a term to look at a new cost of service study to evaluate our costs pertaining.
Yes, at some point in negotiations and the drafts that went back and forth, a 5-year number was seized upon in our latest exchange. We asked for some flexibility within that number so that the cost of service study could be undertaken at least every 5 years. So there would be some flexibility in there. So let's say if it's year 3 or year 4, that something new comes up and things have to be re-looked at from a 10,000 foot level, then that's what we can do.
But if no change, nothing comes up, then it would be 5 years before we do a cost of service study. My point is, cost will change dramatically year by year.
Cost will, but under the framework of the draft we're looking at now, couldn't go 5 years without doing one.
No, that was my concern. That just seems like a long period of time to reevaluate the cost, do a cost of service study. 5 years. How the other board members feel about that.
I agree.
Fortunately, the cost incurred will not be such as when we began this process 2 years ago. The data sets are created and now merely have to be updated. A lot of initial work, and I tip my hat to engineering and accounting departments and gathering that data and getting inserted into the workbooks.
Yeah, but the other side of it is all personnel costs, all of the factors of cost. We evaluate budget-wise if we have to take into consideration the big cost. Well, that's just a concern I have with one of the points in it.
Are you satisfied with the answer you're getting, or are you hunting something else?
Well,
or-
I mean, I guess, yes, I said that if there's no events come up, we probably will not need to do it, but on the other hand, it feels like with this type of contract, there may be opportunity to do a cost of service study before 5 years. I thought I heard that.
Yes.
Now, that's the way I'm reading this. That's your understanding, Bruce?
But,
You're sitting there, and I know you're hearing everything we're saying, but.
yeah,
My understanding is that basically, if we came in and let's say sudden Teleco Village, we have a projected growth, and that's included as to, but let's just suppose all those people he was talking about living in the big cities decide they wanna come down here and live, you know?
Yeah.
And we have a need for more water, and we have a need for more volume. We've been back and forth for the last 2 years talking volume versus pressure, and what does it take to get to the point where if we add a whole lot of people, they can still get the water that you would reasonably expect. So if we couldn't, then we would come back to you and say, we need more pumps, or we need more storage, or we need whatever. And naturally, we wouldn't wait till the end of 5 years. That would be, we would probably do a cost of, study. Otherwise, you know, as this gentleman here said, that things are gonna increase, just sheer inflation. But if nothing happened on nothing at all, and we were get all of this installed, and we're happy with it, and everybody, it works like we think it's gonna work, then the only reason that a cost of doing business study or whatever you call it would be to catch up inflation and project forward. So,
Yeah, but budget-wise, that's a pretty big deal for us,
I
to catch up inflation and catch up other
and
material costs.
I think these rates that they put in takes that into consent, and to account for 5 years. And so if you're modeling, have done that, then we should be okay. I would think we would be okay, unless we ask for you guys to come in and put bigger water lines or more pumps or something like that, and then if you do that. So, but I would like to just go back and say that we recognize that this contract that we have right now was probably favorable to you guys on the front end. It's not so much anymore, and it was less favorable to us at the beginning. Now, that's the way, unfortunately, a contract like this, it doesn't have an adjustment factor work. Somebody is ahead at one point, and then they're behind at another point. Unfortunately, it depends on which side of the fence you're on as to whether it looks good or not. But I would say that, you know, I've got to go back, just like you guys do, and have to sell it to the people that I represent.
Right.
And that's about, we're approaching 9,000 people now, so I basically have to go back and tell them, as I said, that we're sacrificing a current contract that would, by sacrificing it, it's gonna cost us about $1.3 million, just off the top. But we figure that's okay. We have to do that if we want the quality of service that we need. And so we're gonna have to sacrifice that to get you guys to give us the water at the volume and the pressure that we need to be able to do this. And we know that if we keep it up, we've got some problems now that we're doing some magic combination of pumps and things like that to get it to where it's, we got, for example, we had people that took 45 minutes for their commode to fill up once they flushed it. And I know there's other people in the county experiencing the same thing, so we're all trying to solve problems. And so we figure we could give that up and pay the additional amount that we need for these vulnerable repairs, the station repairs, and this bigger water line and whatnot. We can do that if it means that we can get the quality that we're gonna need now and into the future, and that's what the engineers basically have assured us that we can do. So, yeah, in any negotiations, it's a give and take. And I think that after 2 years, I think we've reached an agreement where we both think that we've given and we've taken, and now we're sitting here across the fence from each other saying, yeah, this is good, we can live with it. So I hope you take that into consideration as you deliberate on it and vote later, and just understand that we're looking forward to a long relationship with LUB, and we want to be able to tell everybody, yep, we're satisfied with the service we get.
Yeah. Well, and I certainly appreciate your points, and I'll take them, because I agree with you 100% what you say. All I would say is that though cost of service studies are meant to bring reality in and bring factual information on the table that both parties can know exactly what the true costs are and the impacts, and that's what we've done here to bring these rates to you guys at this point, of course. But to wait 5 years, we could incur up to 15% of impact across the board on inflation or whatever entities we have to deal with. So, from my background, 3 years is a long time to wait to do a cost of service study on any of your entities that need to be evaluated. That's why 5 years was really just hard for me to absorb. Understand why would we do 5 years when we have cost inflation and those things every year, personnel, administrative, whatever. And that's part of your cost. That's part of your cost that has to be evaluated to all citizens, not just, certain areas. But we have to look at the big picture across the board. That's why I bring it up.
And, you make a great point, sir. There's some cold, hard facts in the cost of service studies, any cost of service study, that we would perform. But coming to that judgment that the rate structure is not fully supportive of the operation, and then collecting upon that judgment, those are two different exercises. And so, and I think this board has taken a very wise and moderate approach of phasing that in over the course of 3 years to reach 85% contribution to some key rate classes. And at the end of that 3-year phase in, the intent was to see where we're at then, and maybe continue some phases in the future.
Winston, do you have something you'd like to add?
Well, I was out last week, so I may not have the latest and greatest copy. I think I do, but in section 2 where it says rate, I think it was pretty smart on Ty's part to put the terminology, cost of service study shall be conducted at least every 5 years.
Yeah.
If AUB chose, they could do one every year. Those are expensive propositions, but that gives them the flexibility to depend on accounting whether they've incurred serious cost or not. If you wanted to wait 2 years, 3 years, but at least every 5 years, one has to be done, but I think you have a lot of flexibility there.
I think so too.
If that's the case, then I agree with that.
Well, now that's the way I'm looking at it too. And Bruce, you actually see it that way?
Well, it's written.
Yeah, I know.
Black and white there, so.
But you know how things get written.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I just thought it,
So
At one time, it did say every 5 years, and then the revision was to make it at least every 5 years. 5 years would be the outer limit of when those could be ordered, but I think pretty much everyone is already assuming, and we're gonna order one as soon as these improvements are done to capture those actual costs, which that will be about 3 years from now, on the high end.
Okay, thank you. And thanks to everybody that's contributed here today. Thank you.
Can I-
Anybody?
Chairman,
Yes.
can I ask one question?
Yes, you can.
You say we're gonna make water, they're gonna buy water, just like any residence. Okay, as far as water, delivery, infrastructure, our side of the meter's our problem, other side of the meter's their problem.
Yes, that was a major discussion point during our talks, and that has been clarified.
Yeah, you get the water to your meters, there's 4 of them, and once we,
But the volume guarantee,
you guarantee us the volume, then it's up to us to distribute it.
there you go. Be it a garden hose or a pipe,
4 buckets of water.
Sounds simple as selling wine.
bucket brigade.
Yeah, one way or the other, we gotta get it to the houses, and we gotta get it to them at the biggest thing was get it to them at the pressure that they need. Not only that our resident, but to fight fires, and you name it, and then, so, but we've been through this, I don't know how many months now as to how to do it best. I think we've come up with the best approach, and the engineers say they can give me the water at certain volume, at any time, okay, then it's up to us after that, is what we do.
You boost it where you want it. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for contributing. Bruce, you guys don't have to stay if you don't want to now.
Well,
That's up to you.
I don't know about Winston and Missy, but I'm on fire department duty.
Oh, are you?
So
Yeah,
I wear many hats in the village, and this is just one of them, but I've gotta go.
yeah.
I'm on duty. as fire
Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all having us here.
Thank you very much.
I'd love to stay, but
Yeah, I bet you would.
we don't have to go overboard with it.
Yeah.
Hey, Bruce.
Hey, Jeff.
John, is the door locked and the manager?
I think it's open. We've opened it.
You know, in all honesty, I have sat in on a lot of meetings. I mean, a bunch. And there's been times when it didn't look like we was gonna get here. And there's been times when it looked like, you know, that Telco Village was hitting us again. And it looked like there's times when we was hitting them. So, unless there's some things in here that's written to where I can't understand it, I think we at least have some control now of a contract where we've never had before. And I think it's a great move for this utility system. And I think it's a great move for Telco Village. They're gonna get something out there that they've never had before. And we're gonna get something we've never had before, a fair price for water. So now, what Bruce said about in the beginning, I don't know if that was a good price for Loudon Utilities in the beginning or not. We weren't here. And so we don't know. But we do know that for the last many years, that we've been giving them water. And I mean literally giving it to them. And so now, we're gonna start making some money. And there's a lot of things have to happen between now and then. But we're in a position now that we've never been in before. So I want you to know that Ty and all these engineers and Chris and everybody that was involved in all this, they put many, many, many hours in. This thing just didn't happen just because we come to meet once every now and then in some boardroom somewhere. They spent a lot of hours went into this. And that's why I want us as a board to really, you know, if there's something in here that we need, or something we don't have, or something needs to be changed, you know, maybe now's the time to look at it real hard. And I hope you already have, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, we're moving in the right direction. And I appreciate everybody's comments, everybody, including theirs. And so let's move forward. Let's move forward. We got a chance.
I'll also say thank the board, and I mean, I was on the committee that brought Ty Ross in here, and he knew from the interviews this was a sticking point. 3 years ago, he knew it when he was hired, and he never deterred from it. He took the challenge, got the right people involved. To name who all's worked on it,
Yeah.
it's a long list, but
Been a bunch.
I commend getting to this point, because that was one of his marching orders when he was brought in, and it's took him here to get here, but I think we've got.
Yeah.
It's been well worth the effort to get, this was not an easy task.
No, it certainly
It's a
was.
huge task, so kudos to his staff and all the people that's involved in it, because it's moved the ball a long way.
Sure has. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that.
I have one other comment on the rate.
Yeah.
I'm hung up on this. When we say we can change the rate at least every 5 years, but we do a cost of service study after we sign this contract 3 years from now, that means we can't change the rate until 5 years though. Is that right?
After January 1st, they're locked in until January 1st, 2024 at the $2.30.
Okay.
So after January 1st, 2024, the rate is supposed to be equal to whatever our most recent cost of service study shows as a percentage of the recovery for Loudon City residents.
Well, the only reason I ask that, because I keep looking back at this bullet point, and then I'm going to compare it to the statement in here which does not say that, now that I've looked at the two, but the bullet point said that the agreement enables us to change the rate at least every 5 years. And when I saw that, then I actually missed it in the contract part, but it does say January 1, 2024. So the clarity in it is, and that is that anytime after 2024, it could be changed based upon the cost of service study rate.
Right. The most recent cost of service, so if
I
there
want
hadn't.
clarity on that,
Right.
it states it, but I
If-
just wanted to make sure, because when I read your bullet point, I got a little confused. It confused me on, it was pertaining to the rate could be changed every 5 years.
Right,
So
so
I'm
it's,
playing with it.
it's just, it's a little, because there are two components to the rate.
Yeah.
It's the most recent cost of service study, which we won't know what that number will
Right.
say in 2024, and we don't know what percentage of recovery this board will set for Loudon City residents.
Yeah.
So those are the two components that will dictate what their rate will be starting in 2024.
That helps me, and I should have maybe thought of asking that question when I was speaking to him, but I did not. And then I saw the two that contradicted a little bit, and that confused me, so.
The breakthrough was to really calibrate future rate increases with the city. And, you know, it puts us in an agreement where in the year 24, we're not gouging them, they're not gouging us.
Right.
And in the year 2040, we'll still have that parity.
And I like that. I'm glad we've got some tendencies with PAL forecasted as well. Good.
All right, guys, let's move on. Next item is Tva Flexibility Agreement.
Yes, Bill has, Bill Watkins, our Director of Electric, has been in contact with various solar providers, including those who just happen to be looking in Loudon County. This board entered into a new 20-year agreement with TVA. That agreement allows for, with an additional consent, an additional addendum, the flexibility to purchase power from a power producer that is not TVA in limited circumstances, and this limited circumstances is a renewable like solar. So think of this as a couple of page addendum to your power agreement with TVA. Bill's in exploratory talks right now. We'll see what it looks like. We'll see if it offers a financial benefit to our ratepayers. If we believe that is the case, then we will bring an agreement with a renewable provider to you for your consideration.
Is this something, is TVA pushing this? They pushing for this?
Actually, I think they are. This is a baby step to be able to address concerns both with citizens as well as members of TVA's board concerning renewable power. Should TVA go whole hog into this? And they've installed a lot of renewable power, a lot of solar. But they're looking at being able to allow us as local power companies to be able to also participate in this, realizing that if through our working with other solar providers to be able to purchase power from them, this is generation that TVA does not have to build themselves. And so it's a way that also represents a transition more for distributed power, which is basically, this is a direction that we will go to. At some point, they're going to be able to get the cost of solar panels and other renewables down, and the cost of installing these down, where it is cheaper power than to generate it by nuclear or gas or coal. And at that point, some places like Hawaii are already faced with this decision. They've got to bring their power see, they're fueled in to generate power. So their kilowatt hour cost is huge. And so they're at the growing stage now with some difficulties that they've had to work out with much more IT than they ever expected by being able to open not, you've got floodgates here. If we just let a little bit of water out, then we can see, they can control the development of this. And this is one way, by being able to say up to 5% of what our highest demand is, that we can contract to have somebody, either we build it ourselves, or we can have somebody else on it. Now, the way the tax situations are, the benefit is to somebody else installing it, getting tax benefits, and we purchase from them if the price is right.
Gotcha.
Is this gonna affect the discount that we, by signing that 20-year agreement, is this gonna affect, that discount that we're getting on the power that we've already made that agreement with?
No, that discount is strictly with TVA, and, the board, the TVA board, met this past month, and, we haven't received, official notification yet, but, it looks like that rebate, may increase over time.
Even with doing this, it's still okay though?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all. I didn't know if taking on this agreement, of doing this amendment, it might alter that discount that we signed up for.
No.
So this is coming down the pike.
Yeah, we can bring this, flexibility, arrangement to you for your consideration. And what that does is it opens up the door for us to have these talks with these separate providers. And if it's advantageous to our ratepayers, in other words, if they can get it to us cheaper than we're currently paying for it, and it's something we might take a hard look at and bring before this board for its consideration.
Gotcha. Good idea. Okay. Next item is financial update, July 2020.
Yeah, I'll direct your attention to the rear wall, and our finance director, Tony
Still like
Curtis,
a
is, and she's
Vanna White situation going on here. Sorry, can't resist. I want to talk about 4 points on the financials. I want to be as brief as possible, but hit the high points. Please let me know if you have questions. In the electric, the 4 points I want to hit are on cash, debt, revenues, and expenses for each department. This is the July of 2020 financial reports. It's the first month of our new fiscal year, so the year-to-date totals and the month-to-date totals are the same, and that makes it very simple for analysis standpoint. Revenues in the electric department appear lower than last year, that $4.5 million. For the month of July, they were $4.8 million in July of 2019. So you can see over to the far right, that's 5% lower. But then if you look at our wholesale costs, they are down 12%. And that's a result of what you were talking about, Director Watson, on that 20-year agreement. That decrease in our power cost to TVA is making a difference in that margin. So overall, our gross revenue has increased $289,000 just because of adjustments like that and some of the things engineering has done to mitigate demand costs that are in the system, some of the infrastructure that's been invested in. On our operating expenses, they are up $144,000. Whenever you look at the detail in the subsequent pages, you will see $48,000 of that is depreciation, not technically an operating expense, but it is on that line item. Increase of $48,000 in depreciation expense. There's a $79,000 increase in overhead line expense, and that is just a timing difference. We project for the year our overhead line maintenance will be below what it was for last fiscal year because of the purchasing measures that were put in place last year. And there's also a $45,000 increase in the maintenance expense line item. Again, that is a timing difference, and I think for the year we will end up at or below what we were last year. So we'll go on. Oh, for cash, whenever you look at the TVA report, you will see for the electric department, there's $6.3 million in cash. Don't let that fool you. There's also $3.6 million in the accounts payable to TVA for our power bill. So that nets out to about $2.6 million in cash available for capital projects. And we hope with this positive net income line, we will be able to increase those cash reserves to fund some of the capital projects that engineering has identified. Those are totaling around $8 million for the next 5 years. I will go on to the gas department is next. Let's see. Overall, same story. The revenues appear to be down from $319,000 July of 19 to $277,000 for July of 2020, but this is a difference in gas pricing. When you get right down to it, it's a difference of $913 from this month, from July of this year to July of last year. And that's just because the cost of gas on the open market has gone down. Our operating costs are up $4,000 over last year. The gas department shows a loss in July. That's the same story. Gas department, I love it. I love having music to accompany my presentation. Thank you. This is really exciting stuff, guys. I get excited with financials. So for July, the month of July, it's not uncommon to have a loss in the gas department. You will see on the balance sheet for the gas department a significant cash balance of $21 million. It has committed $10 million of that to an economic development grant for the water department, which helps significantly there. And I believe the gas department has also identified up to $5 million in projects over the next 5 years. And then I think there's some more projects they want to talk about later on for those funds. On the water department, let's see, we'll start with revenues. They are up $98,000 over last year, same month last year. And that's really, Tate and Lyle was a big part of that, up $40,000. Residential inside was up, and our commercial sales were up, whenever you look at the detail. Our operating expenses are up $47,000. Biggest part of that is $35,000 on motor repairs, and a combination of motor repairs. And whenever you drive by the water plant, there's two big clear wells in behind there. One is nice and shiny and white, and the other one is not. And the one that is nice and shiny and white just got painted. So this is the effect of that on the balance, on the income statement. If you look at the cash balance for water, you will see $3.8 million in cash, of which we have $1.3 million set aside for debt service reserve. The water department does carry a total of $14.9 million in debt, and that works out to $1.7 million a year that we pay in loan payments, essentially. So it's important to maintain our net revenues, and the TVPOA agreement is going to help significantly with that. On the sewer department, last one, we're almost there, guys. The revenues are up $22,000. That's attributed to residential, commercial, and some increase in Tate and Lyle. Our expenses are up $7,000. There was nothing significant there. You will see the details, and as you look through those, if you have questions, please let me know. Water and sewer are very similar in that they both carry debt. Water department carries $14.9 million in debt. The sewer department carries $10 million in debt, and but the sewer department has a little bit stronger cash balance at $5.6 million. I know we have some projects coming down the pike on those and that department as well. That's everything I've got. I tried to keep it brief but effective. Are there any questions?
Yeah, how much have we spent on outside engineering over the last month?
Actually, in July, I think that line item was zero for water and sewer.
I saw that on water and sewer, I didn't know if there was.
There is a specific line item for outside services, and I'm looking in the gas department, it was $500, and that is for an external review of our gas contracts, which has proved to help us keep our margin in gas low. You can't see it there, to reduce our wholesale costs. So that's a $500 monthly fee in gas. I'm not sure if the electric department outside services, was $5,000, and I would have to look into what the detail is on that, but I can get it to you certainly. Anything else?
Oh, on page 7. Yeah, I'm just looking at the statement of revenues and expenditures. I'm just wondering if there's a date, a header that's wrong. There's a date 9/30/17
Are you
as a
on,
comparison for this year, or this month, I mean.
are you in the
So make sure we
electric,
not get anything transposed.
in the electric department?
Yeah, it's page 7, I believe it is.
Oh, it is, it didn't carry, at the very top, it's telling you my music accompaniment, that just didn't carry down, but that is the correct information.
Okay, that's always a
That
concern
is-
when you see a date.
Thank you. At the moment, we rely on Excel to assemble this information.
Right.
So I have the same fear that you do. We actually had a very good meeting last week on some possible alternative software options that could bid from Excel. That's everything I've got, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Just one more quick thing with,
Yes, sir.
with the overhead line expense being up like it is, that means they're ahead of schedule on, what they're doing with the overhead lines on the trimming.
I won't speak to that. I think engineering and Jason, do you want to talk?
Yeah, happy to, yes, sir, we are, they're about 90% complete for this year.
Okay,
On
so
the,
that-
that's the overhead right of way cleared, yes.
So I mean, this, that ought to be good, so we ought to see,
The overall number for the year is projected to be much lower than last year.
that is wonderful, good job.
Great. Hey, these guys.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the safety report.
Yes, Director Brown, you
Yep.
report on the safety this
Yes,
month?
sir. We did have one portable injury. The employee was lifting a manhole cover and it resulted in an abdomen injury. And that is ongoing. I'm looking at surgery.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You want more?
Keep us kind of
Will
updated
do,
on
sir.
that, would you?
Yes, sir.
Next item is natural gas rate.
Yes, this is your workshop, and we do have the rates in, for this coming month, the month of October. And, it converted to a rate of $1.16, per 100 cubic feet, billed for residential use.
Okay. All right, now we're up to Operations Center project presentation.
Yeah, what we'd like to do is show you what we'd like to do, and then, at the tail end of our time together today, take you on a walking tour, so you can better understand where we're coming from. So, what you'll see on the screen as we take you through is what's possible, and then, on your tour, you'll see the current condition. The roof repair, no new numbers, no new anything, because we bid out this work, and we're unable to secure numbers previous, are better than what we had previously acquired. So Jim McKee's estimates from before are still the best we've got. And we would like, with your permission, especially after you see it today, to move forward with this project and have it complete before Christmas.
You remember what is that total?
This is where Jim McKee reached out to 5-6 different vendors for the different phases. Jim, you want to talk about
What you see, the ones that we're recommending is the K&H roofing at 139.5. That's for the insulation on the top. That's an R value of 10. What they do, it's a 3-layer process: insulation, a coating, and then another top coating. And it's a 20-year roof for 139.5. With that, the 15,000 that you see from CMC was supposed to be out of Sweetwater.
Sorry, I didn't get
Yeah.
that changed.
That's for removing the insulation that you will see out there that's falling. That's them coming in, taking it all down. That 15,000 is, we won't know what the landfill fee is on that, so I mean, that could be a little bit more or less.
Yeah.
But those are the two that that from going through all of the proposals we've got, and we got it from 7 different companies. And that's what we need, that's the one that's recommended right there.
155,000.
Yeah, 139.5 and then 15, so yeah.
We have any experience with that company?
In fact,
Oh,
on
yes.
that building right there, he sent that to me about a week ago. That's Clinch, they just finished their warehouse up there, that company that came
Or
in.
Clinton?
Clinch Utility, I think.
Clinton?
It may be Clinton, I think it was
It may be
Clinton.
Clinton,
Okay.
but they just finished that project, and it's exactly what we're getting done.
Very similar type buildings.
Yes.
And again, this is what we've got now.
Yeah, that's just the pictures, and the pictures don't do it justice. Seeing it in person is what you realize how bad it is.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's essentially the roof replacement. We've broken up the improvements to the operations center into 3 sections for simplicity. Obviously, one thing, the roof. The second is a series of interior updates, and we did talk to an outside consultant, an architect, in fact. His name was David Collins, and he made some suggestions, and those suggestions were high dollar. It was a significant addition to the building, and what we'd like to do initially is just look at the space, the use of the space now, who we are, how we interact with each other, how we do business inside the building, and try and rearrange ourselves inside the building to take better advantage of the space. And Larry Joe Dockery continues to earn his keep every day, the new engineer here on staff, and he's put together some renderings to show you what's possible underneath this roof here in this office space.
Thank you, Ty. Good evening. I wanted to show you this floor plan of how we are, excuse me, wrong way, of how we are now. This is our existing floor plan. We are standing in this room right here, okay? So sitting, standing. And what I've done is I've created a color coding, a very high scientific color coding system here. If you see the legend on the bottom, red is for electric, blue is for gas, water, and sewer, and purple is for common areas. Okay, so we've got the front entrance labeled, and up top of the screen you'll see the warehouse, the dock, and the truck bays. So, purple, wow, that's the common areas that are shared by all 4 departments. Okay, this is existing. Our red blocks that flew in, those are the electric portions of their space. And then finally, our blue spaces, those are utilized by gas, water, sewer. So, that's existing. Here's a look at what we'd like to do. Sorry, one final little zoom around. So we have the purple, there's no change to the purple. We start off, there's no change for this first blue area, which is our director's office for gas, water, and sewer. Our electric department would shift to that corner of the building. And that aligns up nicely with the existing space, and that room would transform into multifunction room for the electric department. Instead of having just one training room for the entire 4 departments, we would now have two training rooms. So the spaces, the blue blocks that flew in, that would be now the occupied by the gas, water, sewer. And our crew room would shift over. It's a larger room. We got 3 crews, makes sense. And the red electric department director, and then the environmental engineer, professional engineer, those would do the round robin, and they would rotate around. And so the electric department would be shifted to where they're together, closer together, and with this final move of our existing CAD and pretreatment inspector shifting to this space that was previously occupied by customer service. So, as I continue down the show, that CAD office now converts to electric department office, and this room stays blue. It converts into multiple use space, reference room, etc. And then some of the existing features like our SCADA, which is currently housed down in the far room, would be in the crew room. And the plotter, the large format, would shift up to the front. We'd create some space by eliminating a customer counter that is no longer needed. And some modifications to how on the other side of this wall, of how that space is utilized to be better functional for, to be able to utilize the space that we have in a more efficient way. And so I'll just leave you with the before and after, if I can get there. Almost forgot. I'm glad I have my slides. One of the things that we're proposing as far as a nice to have would be a second entrance to the building. We have the front entrance, which is designated there, and a second entrance would allow for the electric department to come in and out quicker, and so that's the location we come up with. So this is again the before. You can see the colors, and here's the after. So one final time, I always wanted to be an optometrist. Before.
What was that second door gonna be at?
After.
It's right here.
Right there beside the kitchen. Right there beside the
Okay.
kitchen. Right where the gas, water, sewer crew room is currently. We would take out one of the panels of the windows, put in a stoop, steps, a little bit of sidewalk, put in a door. So.
Why would the conference room go from universal to blue?
Why would it go from universal to
Or from purple?
Oh. Well, in this proposed layout, we have the opportunity to have the training room, if we want to have training at the same time in two locations. Electric can have their training at the same time that gas, water, and sewer can have training in here. Or if we have meetings at the same time. See, we lost some meeting space up front in this layout. Does that?
It's operational.
Well-
We're several different crews, we all congregate at the same time, especially early in the morning. That's the best time to get things done when everyone's together.
Yeah.
I don't know how do you do that if you've got gas and water over here and electric in their own training area, room? I mean, I thought I saw that as two different entities there.
Yeah, you're right. You're saying that's two different things. What I think Ty's saying is that there's triaging that goes on in the mornings. There's a need to huddle up gas, water, and sewer. There's a need to huddle up just power. If there comes a time when all of us need to huddle up, we can't all fit in here. We barely can fit today in this one. So, especially with as our infrastructure has improved with networking, we can have our own internal Zoom where we could have a screen in here, a screen back there. We could have a screen downtown, and we could have meetings all the time if we needed to. So, but I don't mean to be brief, but I want to just say this is our part one of what Ty has listed here on the agenda is a plan to present. We actually got a cost estimate together to do not just the moving, but there's some construction there with a second entrance and dividing up the electric department, that bottom half, putting up a wall in between the CAD and the pretreatment. There's some costs right there. But we went ahead and considered a remodel for the entire facility that you see here. Replacing all of the network cabling, it's pretty aged, slow. So that's in there. New finishes on the floors, new ceiling tiles. You can see some of them are damaged. Cleaning the ductwork, new floors, new cameras. You know, just there's a lot of stuff in here. So that's why I'm before I flip to the next screen. It's not in there.
Is this the dollar amount?
Yeah.
I don't think we messed up. We can
It's
get it in
okay.
there.
But I've got some paper.
Okay.
But so the dollar amount, for what I just described, and I apologize for not having that slide in there. New lighting, you know, this would be a big job to where you would hire a contractor to oversee for 2 months, essentially. With contingencies, it's around $390K for the entire remodel budget estimate. So.
It's important to note, this building was built in 1996.
Yeah.
So it's 23 years young.
Yeah.
And the tiles and the walls and everything.
Yeah, I shouldn't feel that way. I'm a class of '96 high school graduate, so I feel kind of old now, but it's okay.
Does your layout have square footage on it?
No, this one doesn't, but we can get that. I
No
don't.
big deal, I was just curious if the room sizes were available, that'd be nice to just, when you do the overlays.
Yeah.
To me, square footage is more sometimes of an issue than it is just a room or two.
Yeah.
Like you said, if you get everybody together, you don't have one square footage room that'll fit
Right.
everybody in.
Yeah.
So where would that be at? You know, that's things that,
Woody, where's the biggest part of the cost at in that $390,000?
So removing all the flooring and going with a more like an epoxy coating as an option for the coating, so that's around $200K for flooring, the normal construction, lights, the oversight, and the new entrance is around $27K for the new entrance.
Okay.
And then the network, which, you know, is cabling, camera system upgrades, access control, is $93K.
Definitely flooring is a big cost.
Yeah, flooring, new paint, you know, removing chair rail, wallpaper.
Yeah.
So, ductwork cleaning, so.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thanks.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Last but not least, we thought we could pick this up on the tour, is just to make reference again to some exterior needs. As you can see on the screen, we'd like to address parking. The personnel here is much larger in number than it was in the early '90s, and we'd like to get everyone parked each morning. If you come in here, everyone left at 3:30, but when you're here in the morning, there's not an empty space, and so that's problematic. It's one of the first things I noticed when I moved here is just a complete lack of parking, and so we addressed that. We also addressed some interior storage. You see, there's a mezzanine under consideration, which would provide some overhead storage within the warehouse.
And enclosing, adding truck bay doors to enclose that area. And then two additional structures. Jim, you took it here.
We have it's a 10 bay, the 125 by 32 is a 10 bay where we can put some of our equipment in. It's sitting outside right now. I mean, it doesn't need to be outside. And then the 150 by 80 foot shed, that's in addition to, that's exactly the same one that we built a few years back. And all of this kind of goes together. As you can see, the crosshatch where the poles are at, we're gonna move those over. On the top of the screen, you see that little concrete pad that's got transformers on it. We're gonna make an access road to the back. It just kind of frees everything up where we're not so crowded. We're just out of space. We just don't have any room we've got stuff back behind each other. It's just piled up.
And that, you know, again, coming here, the lack of space, things stacked up on top of each other, things spread around, like Jim says, that shouldn't necessarily be stored outdoors. We're in a unique position because of the lay of the land here and where this operation center is situated, that we can hide some things back here. But that's not always a good thing. We just think now's the time to try and clean up the rest of it.
Okay. Before we go on, Mark, you have anything?
I'd like to know where we're at as far as, at, I think a paving schedule has been talked about with the city. Where are we at as far as getting with, the city and making sure that, you know, discussing the lines underneath those streets that are on that paving list to make sure. I don't want us to get in another mess like Highland Avenue where, you know, we're jamming up one project because we're trying to, you know, slide this in at the last minute to get it done.
Yeah, there's some council members had doubts as to our ability to fund the paving plan. So we had to go through an exercise, I just call it proof of concept, that the budget could take on the new debt service. We'll be discussing that this evening. That's the feasibility analysis that we're putting forward today, which does justify the new debt service. But proud to have a new public works director in position. His name is Michael Hogan, and he'll certainly coordinate with the underground, the engineers here at LUB that are involved in the underground to determine, you know, the best schedule possible to do the repaving.
Okay, have we looked into, with that in mind, have we can we put together some numbers to try to figure out what, if we were to look at maybe a crew that down the road that can maybe work on these projects, you know, replacing aging infrastructure 6 months out of the year, and then the other 6 months out of the year go and put new lines in the ground, you know, to expand our system. I think that, you know, now would be a good time for us to start looking into that, with going to look at that paving schedule and, you know, what we, instead of contract all this stuff out, we might be able to utilize a crew that could do that for us, and, because we know it's gotta be done, and then go look at the expense of us having that crew ourselves, and then that way the other 6 months out of the year, we can go and expand our lines, out, you know, further into, you know, new service areas. Because right now, water's cheap, but, one of these days, I just tell you, Wells and the EPA are not gonna get along. I feel like water will be worth a lot of money one of these days to folks in the country that own a well, and they're gonna wish, you know, they're gonna want city water. And I know that, there's other folks around us that are pushing, that, you know, they're pushing water lines just right up against us.
Right.
And,
yeah, and we already know, and we've been through this for the past couple of years, that our current water rates don't support our current operating costs. So if we add new operating costs to that, we'll simply add that to the cost of service study and provide you with some provisional updated rates that you can consider. Yeah, to support that.
Thank you, Ty. Appreciate that.
Jane, you have anything?
Just in, I guess in recognition of what Bart brought up that item, how do we get items like that on the agenda though for follow-up? We've talked about this for years since I've been on this board, to have a follow-up listing on our agenda where items like that get placed on it and don't get forgotten. And we just, nobody brings it up again unless he remembers to do it. I'm not saying this particular one, but I'm just using it as an example.
Yeah, I agree.
It's happened many a time. So how can we get our agenda to have a follow-up section that has listing from the workshop or even in the general meeting is placed on that, and then we can have an opportunity over a period of 2 weeks to evaluate ourselves what was brought up to think about it, give other folks some insight onto it. I mean, 'cause that's a good idea, is what you brought up, and I'm thinking it'll get caught on to, but how do we get that on the agenda as a follow-up though?
I think we give it a name.
Okay?
I think in order to define an idea, you need to give it a name. I welcome your nominations for the name of this endeavor between now and your October meetings. And I'll spitball some ideas as well. If I don't hear from you, I'll name it. But if you've got some naming ideas, shoot them at me.
Well, again, it's just that I think it's so important to communication, and when good ideas get generated, we talk about them, and sometimes we even talk about solutions in here, how we can do it. But then it seems like a lot of them just get fallen on the wayside,
They do.
we never follow up on them.
That happens.
Go right through the cracks.
So
Sure does.
I appreciate if we can get that accomplished.
That's a good idea.
That's all I have.
Tim?
I do. I want to apologize for my phone going off playing old time rock and roll. But what I want to talk about is the benefit committee meetings that we've had.
Yes.
We last met on September the 9th. And some of the options that we're looking at is raising the stop loss coverage from 65,000 to 85,000, which would give us a significant amount of savings. Don't know the exact cost of that yet, but they thrown out a few numbers. The employee contribution to the family portion of the premium is another one that's been discussed. None of this is concrete, it's just been discussed. Then the other option is 80/20 coverage for outpatient procedures and accident claims. And then another one is participating in a wellness program. And they're supposed to come back with us in November. So we're gonna have another meeting in November scheduled, so we'll look at all those options and maybe some others come on down the road.
You getting a lot of good participation on the committee?
Oh, yeah, everyone's participating and it's, yeah, sure is.
Okay. Carly?
Now,
All right, guys. This meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
This video presentation is made possible by Brewster Services Group.